You see a massive war erupt in the Middle East, and it feels like it came out of nowhere, right? Just sudden, shocking. But what if it isn't? You know, the conflicts we're seeing today, they aren't just random flare-ups. They're really the latest chapter in a story that is thousands of years old. A story written in the language of faith, empires, oil, and, of course, power. So if we want to understand the headlines of tomorrow, we've got to dig into the history of yesterday. Let's start peeling back those layers and see how we got here.
All right, picture this. The year is 2026. It's March. And after years of tension, things have finally exploded. The headlines are grim. We're talking about a full-blown war between the United States, Israel, and Iran. And the language, the threats, they're escalating by the hour.
And on the other side, absolutely no sign of backing down. Iran's leadership, seeing this as a fight for their very survival, is digging in deep. The entire world is just holding its breath because you have major powers, some with nuclear capabilities, standing right on the edge of the abyss.
But here's the thing. A war like this, it doesn't just appear out of thin air. It's the eruption of pressure that's been building and building along these deep historical fault lines for decades, even centuries. So to really get what's happening in this moment, we have to do that thing I mentioned. We have to go back in time. So where did it all come from? Let's find out.
Okay, let's start with the top layer. The most recent history. We're going to look at the modern fault lines, the rivalries, the oil, and the alliances that have really defined the last half-century.
So at the absolute heart of the region's modern conflicts is this massive rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And what's so fascinating here is that it's way more than just a religious thing. I mean, yes, you've got the leader of the Sunni world, Saudi Arabia, versus the most powerful Shia nation, Iran. But look closer. It's also a clash of monarchy versus republic, a U.S. ally versus an anti-U.S. power. It's literally a battle for what the future of the entire Middle East is going to look like.
And this rivalry, it didn't just pop up overnight. It was forged in some really key moments. You start in 1979 with the Iranian Revolution, which just completely flipped the regional power structure on its head. That leads right into the devastating Iran-Iraq War. We're talking 1 million people dead, creating bitterness that lasts for generations. Then fast forward to 2003. The U.S. invades Iraq and, kind of ironically, takes out Iran's biggest regional rival, Saddam Hussein. Well, guess what? That just opens the door for way more Iranian influence. And it all leads up to the Abrahamic Accords in 2020, where you see something once unthinkable: Arab states and Israel formally lining up together because they see one common threat, and that's Iran.
But wait. To even understand those alliances, we have to go back even further. Let's peel back another layer. We're going to the 20th century, to the moment when outside powers literally drew lines in the sand and created the map we know today.
Okay, so check this out. During World War I, Britain was desperate for help, and they started making promises. The problem? They made 3 completely contradictory promises to 3 different groups. Promise number 1, to the Arabs: help us fight the Ottomans and you'll get a huge independent Arab state. Promise number 2, a secret deal with France. Hey, let's just carve up that exact same land for ourselves. And then promise number 3 to Zionist leaders. We support a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. You see the problem here? The entire foundation of the modern Middle East was built on a web of betrayal and promises that could never be kept. And that secret deal with France, it has a name, the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and it is absolutely central to so much of the chaos we see today. You literally had European diplomats with rulers and pencils drawing straight lines on a map. They created countries like Iraq and Syria, mashing together rival ethnic and religious groups who had zero history of being a single nation. And those artificial borders, they've been bleeding ever since.
Now, another huge outcome of this period was the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. And this event is a perfect, if tragic, example of how one single moment in history can create 2 totally opposite, deeply held national stories. For Israelis, this was their War of Independence. A miracle, the creation of a safe homeland after the absolute horror of the Holocaust. But for Palestinians, that same event is known as the Nakba, which means the catastrophe. It's the moment when more than 750,000 people were made refugees and their entire society was just fractured. Both of these truths, both of these stories, are the fuel for the conflict that continues to this day.
And then, of course, you have the oil. This changes everything. After the big oil crisis in the 70s, the U.S. made a landmark deal with Saudi Arabia that basically reshaped the global economy. The deal was pretty simple. The U.S. guarantees the military protection of the Saudi royal family. In exchange, Saudi Arabia agrees to price all of its oil sales exclusively in U.S. dollars. Think about what that does. It creates a constant, massive global demand for the dollar, and it forever ties American financial power to the flow of oil and the stability of these Gulf monarchies.
Okay. But even these 20th century borders and oil deals, they're just sitting on top of something much, much older. It's time to peel back the final layer, the deepest root of it all. Because underneath all the modern politics, you find ancient divisions of faith. We're talking about a split that is over 1,000 years old.
I'm talking about the split between Sunni and Shia Islam. It all started with a question back in the 7th century, right after the Prophet Muhammad died. Who should lead the community now? It was a political question, right? But over centuries, that single disagreement evolved into two very distinct branches of Islam. And here's the kicker. Today, that ancient religious divide is used as a powerful weapon by modern states like Saudi Arabia and Iran in their very current geopolitical power struggle.
And for Shia Muslims in particular, there is one event that is absolutely foundational. It's the massacre of the Prophet's grandson Hussein at a place called Karbala. This moment became the central defining trauma and story of Shia Islam. It created these powerful themes of righteous suffering, of standing up to tyranny, of martyrdom. And these aren't just dusty old stories. They're living, breathing ideas that energize Shia political movements to this day, including the official ideology of Iran.
You know, it's pretty incredible when you step back and think about it. This whole complex tapestry of conflict, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, it all comes from the same tiny patch of earth. The Middle East is the cradle of the three great monotheistic religions. And that shared sacred ground has made it both a holy land and, tragically, a battlefield for thousands of years.
So, okay, we've looked at the modern rivalries, the 20th century lines in the sand, and the ancient religious divides. Now we have to ask the big question. So what? How does all of this immense weight of history, actually lead to a war in 2026?
Well, it's because the same patterns just keep repeating themselves over and over again. This idea that you can use military force to just transform a country, the endless instability baked into those artificial borders drawn a century ago, the simple fact that deep historical wounds and grievances, they never really go away, and of course the constant meddling by great powers over the control of oil. The war in 2026, you see, it wasn't some new, original story. It was more like a tragic sequel we've all seen before.
And this right here, this is probably the most important takeaway of all. Every single person involved in this conflict, every leader, every soldier, every nation, is basically operating from a script that was written centuries before they were even born. Iran is driven by its memory of foreign interference. Israel is shaped by the memory of the Holocaust and wars for its survival. America is acting to protect what it sees as the global order. And here's the problem. Every single side sees itself as the victim, acting purely in self-defense. And when everybody believes they're the victim, well, finding peace is almost impossible.
So all of this history we've talked about, the faith, the oil, the empires, the betrayals, it all came together, it all converged to create that war in 2026. It just goes to show how deeply, how profoundly the past is always shaping our present. And that leaves us with the biggest and maybe the most important question of all. Are these cycles of history truly unbreakable?